You said to me the other night, the first night we got here, which is a week ago now.
Wow.
I know. That in those first days, there was an outpouring of a big emotional outpouring from everybody in family and friends, but also accolades.
Yeah.
What a great man, which is how everybody feels. And you said, okay, it was interesting to hear that. But I'm not that great. And I think I know what you meant, and maybe you could talk about that just a little bit.
Well, this goes back to this theme that John and I've been talking about if we're gonna try to capsulize these things, and if it were a book, what would that title be? And it'd be like, okay, I'd capsulize it down to that thing. It wasn't that great, because of all the stuff that comes in. On the other hand, I'm pretty happy with the way I've led my life. I don't regrets about those kinds of things that didn't turn out right. Well, you make mistakes. It happens. But there's a lot that goes around underneath all that stuff about. If you can start at the beginning and say, okay, so you use it. Here's your theme. Not that great, but thanks for all the things you've said. That's kind of the counter to that. If you jump to the end of the story, it's about being human. It's about what it is to be a person, what it is to have life and responsibility, and some of those things about. We do these things, but all of these things do in some context of errors and success and high points, low points. All that's a part of it. I was telling John, I said, well, a lot of the things that we do are because not only are we human, but we're also males, and so we're driven by very human things, animal instincts, and most of us, we spend a big part of our lives trying to overcome some of that. It's a part of our responsibility to life, to civility and civilization and things, to do a better job about that. Otherwise we'd all still be dragging women around by her hair and abusing people just because you could. Well, if that were 30,000 years ago or more, the responsibilities to civilization were quite different. But now they are what they are, and we have a higher responsibility to treat people differently, whether it be of color, of sexual orientation, sex, whatever that might be. We have a higher responsibility, and it's not always easy to step up to them. We come with a lot of baggage just because of who we are, So that's how it gets back to the end about saying, okay, now, of the things that I've done and lifted, how well have I done it as a good job being a human and being a male and dealing with those things that make us better people, So somewhere beginning at the beginning of this mess and getting down toward the end of that is, I think, a whole bunch of stuff that helps define us in a different way. So part of that starting conversation had to do with responsibility, being competitive, where that plays a role in our lives, where it hurts us or helps us. That has to do with measurement. Should you measure? Is this something that should be measured? Measurements don't always help us, Yet I'm a highly measured person. I know I do a lot of measuring with data and stuff. I hope I'm using it to my advantage, as opposed to using that as purely just a measure of success in some way or the other. You can misabuse that. It's easily used the wrong way. Goal setting, for example. Goals goals are dangerous things. You take them seriously, you better be on the right ones because they'll drive you to an end that may or may not be what you really want it to be. So those are the things that I have seen playing out that I've been spending more time thinking about in terms of what role do they play in my life and what do they play in the lives of others. And if I were to say something about that to others, maybe not necessarily in advice, but in conversation, what would I think of some of those things? So those are kind of the big areas I keep bouncing back in. So between John and I, some of our conversations have been pulling out pieces of this. At one point I was thinking about, okay, if I were going to do a short story, it'd be based on one or two sentence, not exactly statements of fact, but more like, okay, here's one for you, boom, boom. This is a sort of like, here's our truths according to Kurt. Well, I hope it's not the case, but they're basically observable things that people ought to really know. It's whatever I learned in kindergarten, kind of like that sort of thing that we forget that we do, and that either we succeed at or we fail at, and so it's easy to oversimplify or make it too complicated sometimes. But those are the areas I keep delving down kind of into and figuring out, okay, so what do I have to say about that? And it's not particularly well developed right now. It's a conversation thing that may turn into more than that. Right now I see it more of a vehicle that we're using to talk to each other and have a conversation that may or may not include some of those things. I'm not trying to make it exclusive or anything about that. I think it's a good vehicle for us. So to the extent that we're using that, I'm okay. That's good. If I have something else I want to say at some point, I may make that a different kind of thing. I said that before, so it's no surprise there. Not that I have anything in particular I'm thinking of, but that could happen.